Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy, our interview with our special guest, Hollis. Hollis, we're going to talk about advocacy and perspective of an advocate in this segment. I'm going to ask you sort of a sociological question. And that question is, what is the difference between the social model and the medical model of disability?
Absolutely, Nancy. And thank you for asking this question. The important difference is that the medical model is a perspective from that I would say that professionals take, like professional doctors take, in that you have the disability and you are the issue. Whereas the social model is more of a perspective that an advocate such as myself takes, in that, yes, I realize I do have a disability, but my disability is impacted much more by the fact that the barriers around me are causing a lot of my disability. For instance, if I were to go to a restaurant for dinner and the bathrooms are inaccessible to me, that is causing me more of a disability than if they were accessible. That's why I call my podcast the 21st Century Disability, because a lot of these new technologies that are available are eliminating a lot of the barriers around me. For instance, my wheelchair can elevate as well as tilt, and so if I can elevate to a certain height, it is remarkable, Nancy, the way I am spoken to when my chair is fully down, as opposed to when I elevate myself so I can see someone at eye level. So that is eliminating a barrier in my environment, by allowing me to talk to someone at eye to eye instead of having to look up to them.
That's a great point, how the barriers can be more disabling than the disability.
Absolutely.
So, what does disability advocacy mean to you, and what are the ways that people who are disabled or not disabled can get involved to help make a difference?
Yeah, well, disability advocacy, to me, at least the attitude that I've taken has been, throughout my life, I have done certain things in an effort to advance people like me in my community so that they have a better life than I did. So, for instance, I have done accessibility audits for music festivals to tell them suggestions on how they could improve their festival by doing certain things that would accommodate people with certain disabilities. And you can do those things whether you are uh, disabled or not. You can be an advocate and an ally if you're not disabled by doing minor things like volunteering at an adaptive sports event, because people with disabilities need help, refereeing or things like that.
So, in our law office, we're very actively participating in the MS community, the fibromyalgia community, the Parkinson's disease community. So, we will sponsor events. We do a lot of educational events because we really think that being educated about a person's legal rights and entitlement to benefits are are very, very important. So let me ask you this. Do you think the media is doing a better job in being an advocate for the disabled and reporting on what's going on, or could there be some improvement?
I think yes, they are doing a better job in some ways, but in other ways they're not. In terms of media, I think that there's not enough visible disabilities in movies or TV shows, and in the news, you often don't hear about people with disabilities at all. And the way that the only real the thing that I most frequently hear about disability is in advertisements for law offices such as yourself.
So you made a really good point. I was just thinking about recently having seen The Wizard of Oz, and Elphaba's sister, as you know, is in a wheelchair.
Hmm.
And a lot of the chatter was, well, is that person really disabled or are they just an actress sitting in a wheelchair? And that actress is, in fact, wheelchair bound. And that's a little bit of a movie brought some limited discussion about disability work in the context of the movie industry. But I think you're absolutely right. You won't see on a TV show generally a disabled reporter because it's just not considered to be a way to attract viewers, if you will, which is very
Hmm.
unfortunate. But your podcast, I think, is shedding light on those kinds of things. Can you talk with us a little bit about that podcast, who the guests are, and what's the purpose or goal of your podcast?
Yeah, well, my podcast is, as I mentioned earlier, I, at first I was just trying to get a way of lecturing. So, and it was really just me ranting about certain topics. However,
Right.
now I am focusing more on having guests and having meaningful conversations. For instance, I had a guest who specializes in. He did his degree in disability studies, focusing on the role of or the representation of disability in media. And so he and I sat down and we talked about the role of mental health in Batman, for instance, and how the Joker is constantly suffering from mental health issues. And, it's Batman's role to fix his mental health by punishing him. And also, like you said earlier, speaking of, actors who are playing roles of people in wheelchairs that are not actually in wheelchairs, you could talk about the the show like WIE, who had a character who was in a wheelchair, but not who was not in a wheelchair himself. But and now in terms of what I hope that my podcast does is I like to have guests on that speak about issues that they are facing in the 21st century and how the modern world is helping them. For instance, in my latest episode, I talked to a disability advocate who is queer, and how a lot of his work as an advocate was to advocate for people with disabilities in the sexual realm, because there is a lot of available materials for able-bodied or non-disabled to learn, how to have sex, how to have safe sex, most importantly. But if you are disabled, sex is not something that is spoken about culturally. And so, yeah, I'm really just trying to pass on and further the messages of my guests, and how the modern world is assisting them.
So finally, you have a progressive disability, but what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's newly navigating life with disability?
I think someone who is new to life with disability, I would say I haven't had that experience myself, but I would say to turn to the knowledge of others, and so read about disability, watch and listen to podcasts about disability, join the community, and because there are dozens of charities and fundraisers and organizations that are probably focusing on exactly what you are going through. So there are dozens of communities and dozens of charities that are supporting you and what you are going through. It's just that you might have to make a small effort to go about and find them. And there are ways to just look up on Facebook or LinkedIn or any social media, and there are advocates out there that are open to supporting you and what you are going through.
Well, thank you, Hollis, for your insights and your knowledge and taking the time to speak with us today. I would urge our listeners to tune in to Hollis's podcast. And in the meantime, sticks up. So thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment to like our pages, leave a review, and share it with your family or friends. And we want to hear from you. You'll note that at the beginning of each episode description, you can see a link where you can send us your questions and comments. We might even feature them in a future episode. So join us next week for an insightful episode of Winning Isn't Easy. Thanks for listening. And thank you, Hollis.
Thank you, Nancy.